Are you a man and you're in the dating scene or using dating apps? Well, been there many, many times, even recently. So I wanted to share my perspective on dating and particular dating apps so that you can feel as good as yourself as possible and use them in a way that I found really beneficial when moving in your dating life. So if you stay until the end today, I've got an extra point for you as well. Now, as always, if you want to reach out to me on social media, you can do so by clicking my links in the show notes below. Now, for me, I want to be like really clear. Like, I'm a big fan of, I've got certain like standards of what I look for in a woman, and standards for myself. And I don't always get it right, right? Sometimes in my life, and I've built up these kind of standards and understanding of what I want and my own standards I hold for myself over my life. And I don't get it like perfect all the time, right? I'm a human being. I'm not going to sit here and say I've got these perfect standards and I do everything I'm going to say all the time. No, right? Who would I be kidding, right? The majority of the time, I stick to what I say I'm going to do. And I've been in men's groups and all these kind of things, and I hired myself a men's coach to really help develop like more healthy masculinity within me and really understand what that was. And we were talking about integrity, and nobody is 100% in integrity all the time, right? But it's something to strive for and be in as more often than not. You know, you probably met someone who's maybe like completely out of integrity. They said they're going to do something, they never do it. Or maybe they just keep failing themselves. Oh, I said I was going to do this, but I didn't. Anyway, the integrity, for me, integrity is a key thing. Now, I diverted a little bit there, but it's very relevant to what I'm talking about. Having those standards going into the dating world and dating apps in particular, because I know dating apps are very popular nowadays. We're like on technology. Unfortunately, I can also see the downside of them, and I'm not against them because I'll use them in future, like and use dating websites and things like that. And I've had a couple of great dates on from them in my life as well. So I'm not against them. It's just about how we use, and it's apps in general and like technology. We can use it in a good way and not such a good way, and it can actually be, I found, quite damaging mentally. What I found and to be true with dating apps is they can give you a little bit of a false reality and that dopamine hit like social media does. But when you come to reality and maybe actually meeting that person or connecting, it's actually, you actually have this big come down like, okay, it's not the person I thought, because you've had like this kind of dopamine, this excitement. Maybe you can relate from like, oh, this person's pretty, she seems cool, she's got a good personality, we're having a bit of banter over text, and then you like meet and your energies just don't match in real life. I've totally been there a fair few times, right? And also the other side is with things like apps and all these kind of things, and it works all genders, I believe, whichever way you're looking to date and or whoever you're looking to date, is that we can get like addicted to this validation of like, oh, I'm getting likes, or I'm matched with this pretty girl or pretty guy or pretty person, whoever you're after. And then it's like, oh, I know, oh, I feel really good. And it's like, I'm not getting many matches. So I've seen the downside as well. I've certainly been caught up in it as well. It's an opportunity I find to meet someone, but not get fixated, right? So maybe you've been caught up in that loop a little bit, like you're just trying to get swipes to get likes, or maybe you're just like, oh, it's going to be amazing, this person, and you meet and your energy's not quite there. So I want to give some guidance that I've learned on this, right? Just my personal perspective. And again, it's completely up to you on how you use it. The first thing I've learned is be clear on who you are as a person and your values, right? And sometimes that might involve challenging someone or communicating with someone when you feel like they disrespected you. And I'll give you an example from my life. It's not happened very regularly, but like for me, if someone's not interested, if the girl's not interested or it's not a match, I have absolutely no problem with someone being very honest and saying, oh, I'm not quite feeling the vibe. I don't quite think we're right for it. That's no problem, right? For many, many years, I don't have a problem with being rejected in the workplace or like that. Like, rejection is part of the process, right? What goes against my values is someone's either ghosted, which rarely happens, but when it does, I will speak up. And it's ghosting. I made an episode about this in the past, is about them. It's about not having the courage to have a conversation. It's kind of cowardly behavior. And when I was younger, I was guilty of it as well, right? So, I feel like we all do it. Well, not necessarily, but quite a lot of people do it at some stage, right? So like that goes against like my values, and I will speak up. I'm like, look, there's no problem you're not interested, but that was a bit disrespectful, right? Or if someone's just not truthful and genuine to me. So for me, I know I really value truth, right? And therefore I try and live my life in that way as much as possible. I don't try and I don't exaggerate things on like dating profiles and these kind of things like, oh, I'm a multi-millionaire, because I'm not, like, or like, it's a common thing on social media, dating apps aside, general thing, like people like to really boost up, and I've been guilty of it as well, right? But like, know your values and what you stand for as well, right? So knowing what you value in someone is really, really key. And then linked to that is know what is a hell yes and a no for you. This is something I learned from one of my coaches, really powerful. So like, don't make the list too long, by the way, because else you get very picky and it gets very difficult, right? But it's like a hell yes. Like for me, it's like someone into growth, someone who values herself, someone who's healthy, right? Someone who really like is kind to other people. Those are like some examples of hell yeses for me. Hell no's for me would be something like disrespectful or rude to other people, poor communicator. Like a good communicator is a hell yes for me. And I even define what communication for me is. Like there's in person and then there's out person. Like, I try and lead as much as possible, lead the conversation, have those honest, open conversations where possible. But like a hell no from me would be someone who took days to always respond to messages and said, I was really busy, I haven't got to my phone, because I know that's not true. That's like everyone's got their phone on them. Now and then you might have an emergency or like something goes wrong or you just completely zoned out. That's totally cool. You're away for a treat or like an emergency happens. Yeah, I understand that. But someone for me who's constantly like, oh yeah, I only just got back, I just got my phone, is like a hell no, and I'm having words, because for me, that's just poor communication and something else is going on if they're not. It's not about having a text every minute of the day or like calling every minute of the day, a couple of messages here and there like in the day or next day or whatever. But and then obviously you want to see them in person. That's a big one for me. And that's also a no. If someone's like, no, I just can't see you, it's just like, that would be a no for me as well. But yeah, for me, like communication, like poor communication is a hell no. So those are examples of mine. So know your hell yes and hell no, because it make it a lot easier. And keep coming back to those standards, because if you're like getting that indication of someone early, it's a bit like, maybe it's not a match, and it'll kind of save you the pain in the long run. And then the third thing I would share that I've learned from this is take the action, but don't be attached to the outcome. This is, again, like anything in life, it's easier said than done, right? You might get a bit more emotionally into someone and you're like, oh my God, they haven't texted me back yet. And then you're like, oh my God, like, do they really like me? All these kind of things, right? Can go through your head. Now, being able, when I put too much importance to it, and it's not like, blowing up the phone, or it's not like kind of saying all these things, and it's just, even when you've got like a cool approach on the outside, I found personally when in the inside, all these things are going around in my head, like frantic, in the past particularly, which I had to work through a lot, is being so attached to the outcome can be actually quite damaging. And I won't go into the whole spiritual, metaphysical world and how putting so much importance on something actually makes it worse for you. But basically, just that's my experience. When you take the action, you know what you want, and then you take the action just each step at a time. That's the most powerful approach, but not being attached to the outcome. Because at the end of the day, you can't control the other person. If you get upset, you can communicate that and all those kind of things. Now, I've got a final point for you I want to share as well. But just want to mention that if you want to connect with me on social media, you can do so by clicking in the link. It's in the show notes below. The final point I would suggest is limiting your usage, because I do that with social media as well. When you become so like, I need validation, all these kind of things. And it's not easy in this day and age, right? We're constantly trained to get like dopamine hits and all these kind of things. But if you can limit your usage, that can be really, really helpful. So it doesn't mean you have to rule it out completely, because you probably want to be on these apps. You want to be like dating and meeting people, right? But if you can limit your usage, that can really, really help as well. Just say like, I'm going to go on it between there and then it doesn't make you so like looking at it all the time and trying to get validated. So that's a final tip I've got for you then as well. So that was my take on dating, in particular dating apps, and how I approached it and what's really helped me. At the end of the day, it's something that is always going to have challenges, but there's also some beautiful moments from it as well that I found. So it's definitely an area, one of the strongest areas for growth. So I just want to provide my insight from many challenging experiences and some great ones as well. So I appreciate you for being here, and remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.